Matthew Michael. How you doing today, sir?
I'm outstanding. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. It's Tuesday, you know. Right now is we haven't did anything around, but once again, like I respect as far as like your position, and even right now, like last week when we had a conversation and we speaking about like health itself and how a person body start breaking down at 35, and I find that very shocking and amazing. Do you care to elaborate?
Well, I think, Brian, the basic issue is that for the vast bulk of human history, life was very, very different for us. In my opinion, the reason why we're here is to reproduce. That's basically, I'm a believer in the evolutionary theory. I have my own religious thoughts, but I believe that we were created through evolution. And evolution basically is interested only in how we can produce the next generation. For the vast bulk of our history, we had children much, much younger than we do now. And so we were generally looking at a turnover of generations in the neighborhood of 12 to 15 years, no more than that. So by the time we were in our mid-20s, we were grandparents.
Wow.
Okay, by the time we were in our mid to late 30s, we were great-grandparents. And in terms of how we can contribute to the next generation, that contribution becomes less and less valuable as we get older, and therefore our bodies basically evolve to last that long. So basically, if you look at human health and well-being, everything begins to deteriorate around that age of the mid-30s to early 40s. So in that regard, then you can think that whatever you're doing for your first 35 years in terms of just general health declination, there's not a whole lot that's likely to happen. Now, I've seen a lot of patients in my practice who are in their early 30s who have already gone on dialysis because of diabetes and high blood pressure. People who've already had strokes because of high blood pressure. This is not uncommon. And it mostly has to do with people simply not being aware of the fact that health doesn't come for free. You have to pay attention. You have to be involved in your own healthcare, which means you have to look, listen, read, and understand, and then take action. If you don't, you're going to fall apart. Everything you do when you're in your teens and your 20s is going to determine how you age after that. If you're taking great care of yourself, exercising, building muscle mass, building cardiovascular reserve, and getting your mitochondria to a level where they can process oxygen more efficiently, then you're setting the table to age gracefully. If you're not doing those things, you're setting the table to age under stress in conditions that will cause premature aging, premature strokes, diabetes, and all the consequences of simply not taking care of yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because even right now, you made a key point when you say even as we are going through life, saying even in our early age, if we listen and read, and right now it's like trying to understand our body. And to me, as the first thing came to my mind, like, wow, if you listen, it's like if you listen to your body, what I'm saying? Because our body communicate to us. Our body is no different than an automobile. If we driving that vehicle down the street and we start hearing some funny noise, what we going to do? Automatically, we're going to stop, or automatically, we're going to try to get to the nearest mechanic as possible. So you're right, as far as listening to our body, because our body do communicate to us, letting us know whether something is right or something is wrong.
I agree. However, I would also go much further and say that most of the problems that are developing for our youth these days, much higher rates of obesity, hypertension, diabetes than ever before. I saw a patient via telemedicine just a couple of nights ago who was 25 years old, 5'6", 260 pounds, hypertensive and diabetic, already struggling with these diseases. She's just 25 years old.
Wow.
That never happened before this time in history. There's a lot of reasons for that, but most of them are the fact that we are completely surrounded by unhealthy food choices, abundant quantities of food that are very low in nutrition and high in the ingredients that cause the biggest problems, primarily sugar and refined carbohydrates. That's the real problem. But from there, we are also in a position where we no longer have to struggle to live. There is no struggle involved for most of us other than working a few extra hours here and there. But for the most people, they're not working in jobs that challenge their bodies. They're working in menial jobs that are not particularly challenging. We don't have to hunt. We don't have to build our own homes. For the most part, we have a very leisure life, which means we're doing nothing most of the time. And when you think about doing nothing most of the time, you have to understand that the human body is in a never-ending state of adaptation to whatever you're doing right now. Whatever you're doing at this moment, you're adapting to. And for the bulk of us, including me at this moment, we're sitting doing nothing, which means your body is adapting to be able to do nothing. Which means if you even want to go walk down the street, if you've been sitting for hours and hours every day, just that walk down the street is going to be challenging. So as soon as you recognize that if you're not challenging yourself, you're adapting to being passive. The one way that I like to think of this is a phrase that I think I coined, but I don't know for sure, which is, if you are not climbing, you're coasting, and you can only coast downhill.
Wow. So our body is our temple. And even with that being said, whereas like to me, idle time is the devil workshop. If I'm bored and I'm not moving around doing certain things, and just recently, I spend a lot of time in the office, on my computer. And to me, when I'm in that office and sometimes I get bored, guess what? I'm eating, I'm snacking, I'm eating all the wrong things. And people do not understand. It's a true saying. We are what we eat.
No question.
If we eating fast food, if we eating junk food, guess what? We are what we eat. So automatically right now is all that stuff, like what you got coming. If you got a bunch of poison coming in, eventually what you got coming out, poison in, poison out. But then again, with all those ingredients in these food product, and most of the time, it's some of the things. I already got a speech problem. I can't pronounce certain words. So I pick up certain things like, what the heck is this, man? And automatically, but long as they'll say pork, I'm putting it in my system, but they are just as bad as me putting pork into my body. So once again, we are what we eat, and learning how to eat healthy
is critically important. Bottom line is, we know for sure the healthiest thing you can eat is vegetables. We know for sure that meat has challenges ethically and in terms of nutrition. But for the vast bulk of people, I'm not going to tell you to go out and become a vegan today. That's not going to work. What I want you to do is pay attention to what you're putting in your mouth, recognizing that you want to do your best to eat less meat. Not no meat, but just try to reduce the ratio of meat that's in your diet. Recognizing that even then, meat is not the worst possible thing you can put in your body. The worst thing you can put in your body are processed foods that sit on a shelf in a grocery store and can sit there for months on end and not rot. Food that doesn't rot within a week to two is not really food. It shouldn't be in your body. It's loaded with sugar and trans fats, which are toxic. So any food that's simple, that will not rot, a packaged product from the middle of the shelves, from the dry shelves in a grocery store, those are invariably not good for you. And keep in mind, those are foods that are manufactured by a food company. Food companies do not have any obligation to produce nutritious food. They're only required to tell you what is in their food. So there's a list of ingredients, and then you decide whether you want to eat it or not. But the government doesn't tell them you cannot put out food that is unhealthy. They don't say that at all. They just say, tell us what's in your food. Simple as that. But if you don't read those ingredients and know what it says, you'll have no idea.
Look what you say, the ingredients. So the government is not here to basically protect our health. They're just protecting, making sure that we eat. So once again, like, it's not like every product you get before you buy, you're going to Google, oh, well, what is this? What is that? That's not real. Because once again, we don't have time for that, or we don't make time for that. And something that I like was kind of powerful. If it don't rot, what the heck are we doing? If it can sit on a shelf for weeks and months, it got expiration date. So once again, what are we doing? And it go back to what I was saying as I started. We are what we eat. So a lot of things, just because it might say it's vegetable and it's in a can, that don't mean we eating vegetable.
Well, in the big picture, I think that there are a lot of challenges when it comes to vegetables, because people tell you to eat fresh vegetables, and a vegetable is fresh within 24 hours of when it's been picked from the ground. Important thing to remember there is that it is very rare that a vegetable even gets to the grocery store shelf within 24 hours. So by the time you're picking over it, it's not likely to be fresh. So then you bring it home and it's going to sit on your counter or in your refrigerator, and odds are high that you won't have time to eat it that day. You might not even have time to eat it the next day. So now your food is 5 days old. It is no longer fresh. So my choice is, I'm a little bit lazy in this regard because I don't want to shop every day. I go to the grocery store and I load up on frozen vegetables, frozen asparagus, frozen broccoli, frozen cauliflower, frozen peas, frozen lima beans. They're sitting in my freezer, and they can be there for month after month after month because they're frozen, and that's almost an indefinite storage time. So that when I want something for dinner, I know I have a can of sardines. I'm going to make a sardine salad. I have a bag of frozen vegetables, and sardines are the healthiest fish you can eat. The bag of frozen vegetables, I am fine with the ones that you just heat up in the microwave in the bag. It's not perfect. It's better to be able to pour it out into a pan and fry it or cook it or boil it or whatever you want to do. But if you have to be focused on your food and you don't want to be a cook or a chef yourself, cook the vegetables in the bag. Open up a can of sardines. Make a sardine salad. That's a very nutritious dinner there. Broccoli and sardines. And it can sit on the shelf 4 months safely because it's canned or frozen. That's a great way to approach this. It's a way to make nutritious foods easy and approachable.
Okay. You know, even like, you know, to me, the older we get, and to me, like I got that problem, whereas I go up and down. If I'm taking and using Panoxol, I'm good, you know, but sometimes I get sidetracked, I did get discouraged or whatever, and I stop everything. And then that's when I see the weight gain. That's when I start seeing the health problem. And that's when I start like feeling sluggish. So it's like, to me, going back to the basic, it's like being disciplined. Like, you know, we want to preserve ourselves. And to me, like I always joke on my YouTube channel that I'm 91 and a half years old. So I'm starting to feel like I'm 91 and a half years old. But, you know, as of lately, I start back taking Panoxol, start back, you know, feeling it, doing my little workout or whatever. Because once again, it's like right now is a lot of times it's not, you know, going back and forth. It's maintaining and staying there. Because once again, our bodies are temple. And as you get older, it's going to get harder to get back into shape.
Absolutely, no question. That goes back to the notion of adaptation. When you're young, your body adapts rapidly to whatever you try to do. As we get older, that adaptation process takes longer and longer and longer. So the key there is consistency. Be consistent with your exercise. The other side, though, is to recognize that the biggest changes that occur with the body, the biggest benefits that you get for your health, are not when you become an Ironman triathlon. They're in the first 25%, going from doing nothing at all to being in the bottom, at the top of the bottom 25% in terms of activity. So that might mean you're walking a mile a day. That puts you at 24th percentile as far as how much exercise you do compared to everybody else. That alone is the biggest thing you can do. Just go for a walk every day. Build on that. Exercise is not valuable if you don't do it every day. So the best exercise program on the planet is of no value whatsoever if you don't do it consistently. That would be the primary lesson there. Find something fun and do it often.
Hey, you know what I want to do? Play tennis. I don't know. I know how to watch tennis. I always felt right now playing tennis, you can't cheat. It's like right now, you going. You got to be on it, especially got the US Open going on. So automatically, that's something I always want to do. And you know what? Like to now, like getting out there. You're right. And my objective is right now was committing to working out. You know what I'm saying, 4 to 5 times a week. And you know, like I told you right now, the 20-minute spurt. And sometime right now, it all depends upon Phil. You know, twice a week, twice in one day.
Just keep it fun, Brian. Just make sure you're doing something that you're not doing because it's a chore and you got to do it.
You're
doing it because you want to do it. So take tennis lessons. Fantastic. Have somebody teach you how to play tennis. Enjoy it, or play pickleball if you want to start there. Whatever it is, any activity at all is infinitely better than no activity at all. So find something fun and stick with it.
Okay. You know what? I remember a few weeks ago, and right now is something came out about this guy. He's a hip hop, you know what I'm saying, rapper, pioneer. became like one of the first, billionaire rapper, Dr. Dre. And a few years ago, during COVID, he had gone through a divorce. He had like a brain aneurysm. And to me, like, it was an interesting article, and I listened to him on somebody's podcast. And as he was speaking about it, it's like right now when it happened, like the doctor was calling his family members, like, basically calling them to tell them, look, this guy's not going to make it. Like, you might well come in and say your buys, because now, like during COVID, they wasn't letting family member into the hospital. And he's saying right now the type of test they was doing was they had to keep him alert, keep him awake. So every hour on an hour for those 2-3 weeks that he was in the hospital, they was waking him up. They didn't want him going to deep sleep. And they was like doing a sobriety test, like touch your nose, touch your head, like, more it's like let your heel or the back of your heel, your feet hit the bed. So he say every hours they were waking him up to make sure that he was alert. So even with that being said, like we heard or hear the terminology brain aneurysm, and I know like several people that have died of brain aneurysm. And even when I was talking to you, it was like, to me, like, how do you prevent from having a brain aneurysm? And first and most important of all, what is a brain aneurysm?
Well, sir, a brain aneurysm is a small dilation of a blood vessel in the brain. We typically are talking about what are called baryaneurysms. These are little sacs that develop on the outside of the blood vessels of the brain, usually in the back of the brain, called baryaneurysms. It's about the size of a small grape or even a blueberry. Those then can rupture. When they rupture, blood in the brain tissue outside of a blood vessel is very damaging. It's very inflammatory. The pressure of the bursting aneurysm destroys some brain tissue, but then it's the swelling of the brain that's the biggest problem. So in terms of what we can do to prevent them, we have not a poor understanding of how they form in the first place. A lot of it we believe is genetic and sometimes congenital. You're just born with a weak spot in a blood vessel that allows this little sac to develop. Now, we believe that the higher your blood pressure is, the more likely it is to push that sac out further until the sac becomes bigger. And as it becomes bigger, there's only so much tissue there. It's like a balloon. As a balloon gets bigger, the wall of the balloon gets thinner. As the wall of the aneurysm gets thinner, the odds of it rupturing get higher. That's what we believe is happening. It's the only thing that really makes sense. So yes, controlling your blood pressure is very important. That takes us back to panoxol. So panoxol, in terms of all the things that we've been talking about, is very powerful for controlling blood pressure. It's very powerful for contributing to a better metabolism of glucose and reducing the odds that you're going to get diabetes. Even more importantly, in terms of the development of diabetes and high blood pressure, people generally tell us that when they take panoxol, their energy levels go up so much that they just feel like they can do more, that they want to do more, that they're able to get out and exercise in a way that they wouldn't have before because they just want to sit there and watch TV because they don't have the energy. Routinely, over and over again, we hear people say, Doc, you know what, when I take panoxol, I just feel like I can and want to do more. It's a very important part of what we're talking about. And I think that when you're attempting to get to a place where you're going to take control of what's going on in your life, if you use panoxol as a cue, you're taking it twice a day, maybe 3 times a day on a routine basis. And when you look at that pill before you put it in your mouth, you're thinking, this is not the be all and end all. This is one part of my journey towards getting back to where I'm taking care of myself. I'm checking my blood pressure every day. So you know what your blood pressure is. You're seeing a doctor so you know what your blood sugar and your A1C, your average blood sugar over 3 months. What is it? What is that number? What is your vitamin B12? What are your testosterone levels? These are all things that are critical for the aging process. If you know what they are, you can take action to control them and get them optimized. If you don't know that your vitamin D is below normal, you're at very high risk for all sorts of problems, from osteoporosis and fractures to immune problems. But if you know what your vitamin D is and you're supplementing appropriately, you can change all that. So you have to be engaged in your own health. If you aren't, nobody else will be for you. And the bottom line there is, as we get older, the problems that are developing are not symptomatic. We call high blood pressure the silent killer, because even if your blood pressure is 180 over 110, you will not know. People think, I'm going to feel stressed out, I'm going to have a headache, my eyes are going to be bulging. None of that. You will have no clue until you feel so tired you got to go to the doctor and he has to tell you, I'm sorry, sir, but your kidneys aren't working anymore. You got to go on dialysis because your blood pressure is 180 over 110 and you never knew it.
So the silent killer. So even with that being said, like when it come down to our health, it's more just like keeping our hand on the pulse. Like, I always try to
Oh,
tell people,
yes.
you got to keep it on there from the beginning to the middle to the end. You can't let off. You can't let go, because once again, look what you're saying. Once it hit to a certain point that it can be critical, it can be deadly, and there's no recovery. So you know what? It's no defense for element surprise. So when it comes down to our health, we always got to be prepared.
Brian, that's a great way to say it. You got to keep your finger on your own pulse. If you don't pay attention, nobody else is going to do it for you. If you don't go to the doctor and get these numbers checked, you're not going to know. You need the help, but then you can't just go to the doctor and say, hey, fix me. You don't want to get to the point where the way to control your diabetes is a shot of insulin or a pill. You want to be at the point where you're controlling the potential to develop diabetes with diet and exercise. That is by far the most important message, and I think that it's important to recognize that Panoxol can and should be the foundation of the beginnings of that process.
You know what? Like I told you from our conversation, and when you say as far as the body, whereas they, start breaking down at 35, because a lot of us, and like to me, I was kind of like, mind boggled by that, that the words like 35. Wait a minute, hold up. Because a lot of times we like to think that we have time. And even as you start this conversation, whereas with the young lady at 25 years old, like 5'6", 260 pounds, obese, and we don't understand, like right now, where it's like we are slowly but surely, like we don't have to worry about nothing, killing us. We are slowly but surely killing ourselves, because once again, we don't quite understand, or sometimes we think a number. We look at that age and thinking that we have time to get it together, that we have time to control this situation, or we got time to reverse the course. No, we don't have time, because once certain illness hits you, sometimes you don't recover.
You know what? The fact is that is true. You, again, you have to recognize that what you're doing today is setting the table for your health tomorrow. And the longer you wait to set the table, the worse things are going to become, and the harder it's going to be to dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah. And that's the difference. Like you say, it's a hell of a hole, man. And like, to me, it's almost like, out there drinking, out there partying, out there, now marijuana is legal, but smoking marijuana, sniffing, and all that other stuff are shooting up. So it's like you just constantly right now from an early age destroying some of the major organ, major, like, parts of your body for abusing yourself, thinking, what, I'm just, I got time, when we don't have time anymore. That's not even a luxury.
No, and the world we live in, again, just like with foods, companies they do not have to make nutritious food. They just have to tell you what's in it so you can decide for yourself whether you're going to put it in your mouth. And if you don't understand what you should and should not be putting in your mouth, join our journey at Panoxol.com. Get a health coach. Get on our telemedicine platform. Find people who can actually coach you through this process so you can take control of your own fate. That's critically important.
And even with that being said, because what I've been doing, I've been basically speaking about Panoxol. I got commercial on any video that I do about Panoxol, and you'll always share the link. And that's the difference. That's what you want people to understand. Like, what, like it is like even with the coach, I like that, because once again, to me, when you got somebody that can coach you through a process, or can coach you how to take the Panoxol, natural ingredients. It's no artificial flavor. It's like natural ingredients. So even with that being said, it's not like you taking medicine. You taking natural ingredients that's going to help you fight high blood pressure, high cholesterol, high sugar. To me, that's huge. That's a blessing.
I completely agree. And I think when people go and they see, we're not just about selling a product. The product itself is very important. It is unique. It is patented. It does a host of good things in the body. But we are very much about this health coaching process, about helping people find a primary care doctor, even in a virtual platform. I cannot tell you how important it is to really understand your own health. For example, I practice something called functional medicine. I have a functional medicine clinic in Brentwood, Tennessee. My process is to help people understand that when you go to a primary care doctor, an MD, a regular doctor for your health in general, they might look at your labs and see that your thyroid hormone is low, but it's normal. It's within the normal range. And the hormone that helps you produce more thyroid hormone, thyroid stimulating hormone, is on the high side. So it's at the upper limit of normal, but it's still normal. Given the constraints of medicine in general, that if you don't have a frankly abnormal result, you can't get anything done about it. But in functional medicine, we recognize that since my thyroid hormones were on the low side and the thyroid stimulating hormone was on the high side, I am frankly hypothyroid. I started taking thyroid medicine about 4 months ago, and it has made an enormous difference in my energy levels and my ability to maintain my weight. But if I hadn't gone to my own clinic to get this blood test done, I would not have known.
Wow. And like you say, look, it's a lot of things. Like, to me, I know people, friends, that actually afraid of going to the doctor. Like, I know even right now, years ago when I was younger, wow, crazy, doing things. And, the subject matter was HIV/AIDS. Whereas, guys, if I got it, I don't even know I got it. And I think, honestly speaking, I think that's a backward way of thinking, because once again, a lot of times, people don't understand. Even back then with that situation, it used to be back then a death certificate. Now it's not. It's like, if you know about it and you take action, you can preserve your life. And to me, a lot of times, being young, you walk around with a death wish, but as you get older, slowly but surely, you start appreciating the things in life that you want to live. So automatically, I challenge anybody that's out there, especially these men, go out there and get tested. Go out there and check yourself out. Go out there, get your heart checked out, get your liver checked out, get your lungs checked out. These are things right now, get your blood pressure. That's supposed to be the norm. But these are things that your cholesterol, we take for granted. And I don't understand why. I think most men feel it's our pride. I'm healthy. I'm a man. I'm big and strong. That's not reality.
No, it is not, Brian. It absolutely is not. So the bottom line there is you have to develop a relationship with a doctor that you trust. That's the most important thing. Somebody who's going to be able to educate you when it comes down to, what does your blood work actually tell us? What does this mean that your vitamin B12 is low? What do you have to do about that? How do you have to take action so that you get it up to a normal level, so you don't develop a neurologic problem or a specific type of anemia related to low vitamin B12 levels? That is critical. And you have to take action. You have to find a doctor to begin with. If you love him, great, or her. If you don't, find another one. But you have to start the process. Health does not come for free, especially not after the age of 40. So.
And you know what? Even with that being said, to me, even what the sense of going to the doctor, if you're not going to be honest, if you're not going to communicate effectively, because once again, you know what? To me, I can go to the doctor and say I'm sick. Automatically, if I do not be specific, letting this individual, giving them proper information to give them to understand, to let them dissect the situation, I'm going to say I'm sick. So here it is. If I come and say I'm sick, you give me something for my stomach because I'm not being clear, then it's something really wrong with my head. I got a headache. You got to clarify. You got to break it down and give the people this information that is needed so you can get diagnosed properly and get the proper help. And a lot of times right now, learning how to communicate and communicate effectively.
Brian, that is so true. And it all comes down to that same notion of being active in your own healthcare. Recognizing that if you just walk in and say you have a headache, think about your headache. What triggers it? Does sitting on the couch for too long watching TV trigger your headache? Does your headache start back here and radiate up into your temple? Tell the doctor that. Don't wait for them to ferret it out of you. Tell them exactly what happens, but you have to first be thoughtful and aware of what's producing your headache, because your headache might be something as simple as a little bit of tendon strain or irritation in the back of your neck. And if you get up and move and do a few simple stretches, a headache that is totally debilitating and makes you think you're developing migraines can disappear just by changing your habits and behaviors.
And see, that's the difference. It's like learning how to communicate effectively. And to me, that's what people do not understand. And like I told you, Doc, what I want to do is, honestly speaking, I want to thank you for your time. And to me, we got to, like, I like this. Any interaction I do have with you is always positive, is always uplifting, it's always inspiring. So once again, I want to go ahead and start it all over again and keep it going. Like, even right now with my exercise, I gotta, not wait until I feel like, wait a minute here, I need to push away from the table. I gotta be consistent each and every day, man. That's what I have to do.
Well, Brian, thank you for the opportunity to be on your show. I really appreciate it. And remember, exercise has to be fun. It has to be something that when you get home from a day, you feel like, I want to go play tennis. I'm even if you're just going to hit up against the backboard, I love it. I want to go do it. And if it isn't fun, you're not going to keep doing it. And if you don't keep doing it, it doesn't matter.
So, Dr. Matthew Michael, you're trying to tell me if I get me a tennis racket, by next year this time, I could be playing in the U.S. Open?
Absolutely. No question about
it. Hey, thank you. I like it. Thank you for not shooting me down. I like that, man. Just if you can dream it, you can achieve it, man.
There you go. Just talk to Serena. She'll tell you.
Exactly. Hey, thank you, doctor. Thank you for your time. We got to do it again.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Goodbye.